This is a basic usability issue that can't exist in our case studies if we want to get considered for roles, especially in markets like the one we're in right now. They're trying to rush to judgment. They're looking for reasons to say no and triage you out of their recruiting funnel. The little things like this are just easy reasons to say no. If instead of the headline, if instead of it being smiles to your door, if it's improving cart conversion by 17%, that's a huge deal. And I think that I saw a bunch of red flags in this case study. That's kind of where I start when I review these things, or like, remember, like, snap back to like day in the life of the person reviewing this to consider Morgan for a job. Like, they've got hundreds of applicants probably. They're looking for easy reasons to say no to Morgan. And I think I found a bunch of those. So I would start there. The first thing is I scroll down beneath the role process tools duration to this first big section here. This widget actually didn't work for me. I can't get it to work. I can't click on these thumbnails. Is that working for you?
On one of them it did, but it didn't for all of them.
And same here. So I think the one beneath the next one, there's another one of these and that works. The style guide.
Yes, that one does work.
That works. And so, I mean, I have a bunch of comments just on this mock-up here that we're talking about. One is the navigation doesn't work. Listen, if you're applying for UX design jobs, the UX of your portfolio and case study needs to be bulletproof. It needs to be peerless. There can't be things like this there. This is probably a really easy fix for Morgan to go in, but it's like, because obviously it's working elsewhere on the website. So it's not like a fundamental problem. It's probably just a little tweak. But just things like this, to all you designers out there working on your portfolios, get rid of easy objections. Broken stuff is one of those. The other, again, like a visual design comment on this, it's really hard to see those thumbnails, right? They're so tiny, they're hard to click on, they're hard to see, they're not doing their job. This is a basic usability issue that can't exist in our case studies if we want to get considered for roles, especially in markets like the one we're in right now. So that was a red flag to me. And then I also looked at this on mobile. Some of these things, how long did it take you guys to realize that you can actually scroll within these mock-ups and it will scroll up and down?
I discovered that actually by accident, because if you scroll down to the section where there's a ton of the mobile like interface, it stopped my scrolling. You go up. It's further up right there. Yeah, because I was scrolling, my mouse went over it and it stopped me scrolling. That's how I exactly knew that they actually scrolled.
And I discovered this when I was looking on my phone on mobile, but this is especially bad on mobile because you have way less surface area to put your finger to scroll up and down. And then I accidentally started scrolling within one of these UIs. So to me, there's room for improvement for two different reasons. One is that it's just hidden. I had no idea. The only way I discovered this was by making a mistake and getting frustrated. It's like, what the hell is happening here? This is another kind of red flag usability problem. I think it's great that Morgan is showing us more stuff, but I got frustrated. When I figured that out, I was frustrated because I wanted to do something else. So that's stuff that's got to be fixed. If you want to show more, like in the main level of the page, I think make these a GIF, right? I love when people do that. But that was another kind of red flag basic problem I saw. Another one I saw was on mobile, these sections. Ludovic, we're looking on desktop right now, but the little thumbnails, those actually bleed on mobile. They bleed outside the bounding box of that aqua container in the background. So there's a layout issue there. Yeah. This doesn't look like an intentional design choice. This looks like a bug or a mistake.
Right.
That's another easy reason to say no to someone.
Yeah, and it's really small. I mean, I like what you're saying because it's not much work for her. It's not like she's like, I have to redo my entire case study, right? But it's still a deal breaker. Yeah.
Yeah, these are just, and again, like, part of me always feels bad for nitpicking on these things, but the reality is, if you've got someone trying to make they're trying to rush to judgment, they're looking for reasons to say no and triage you out of their recruiting funnel. The little things like this are just easy reasons to say no. So these have to go away.
Yeah, that's something that we lean into. Like, we don't stray away from harsh feedback. Don't get me wrong. We try to do it as nicely as possible, but also it doesn't help you if you don't hear these things, because you won't know what's wrong, because people will just say, oh, it looks fine, or it's great, but it's really not, and it doesn't help anyone. And so 100% with you on all of those things.
That's right. And then sorry, I don't want to
keep going
for too much to take too much time. There is one more red flag on so Morgan is using this kind of interesting thing that's, you can't see it on yours, Luke.
So where is it?
No, you can if you scroll down.
There's a process.
Scroll down a little bit. It shows up.
I've got the process, sticky header process thing.
Oh, the sticky header. Yep.
Okay, scroll down. Okay, that's pinned to the top. On mobile, there's a really weird behavior with this widget where I scrolled to this and then something strange happened, and then all of a sudden I was jumped further down the page than where I was. And every time I scrolled through that part of the case study, it happened. This is another little usability flaw that should be fixed that can turn into a red flag. So those were kind of the big immediate things that jumped out at me.
And I feel like we've seen this many, many times, and I feel like it's in some sort of portfolio builder that she's using and that many people are using. This is a built-in UI element that is not good. Because these are clickable, and I remember, Colton, that we saw one where these are clickable, what? And it actually sends you to the section, but then this breaks on mobile and it doesn't even have a way to go back to the home. So you can't even navigate back to the main page. It's just they have many issues.
Yeah. Every time I've seen that, I've always questioned whether or not it's clickable or not. And I didn't even see it the first few times we've seen this component being used. I didn't even notice it as I was going down, and then oh my gosh, these things are clickable, and why do they even have this here? And the only reason we actually discovered it the first time was why are you putting your process like that without any other section? I don't understand. So not a fan of that use of that component for sure. Good call out, Jeff.
To add to that,
one thing, Jeff, I do want to call out.
Oh, go ahead, Colton.
Yeah, it's just if you scroll to the top, it's unclear if this is for a real company. And it says for an online e-commerce store, it's okay, but this could totally be a BS thing. Turns out it's real. And the reason I searched for it, it's smilesToYourDoor.com. It comes up whether they created this thing or not. It does have a real website, and it seems to be a real product. And so that is actually a big plus, right? It sounds like this actually was a real product, and all the changes that that she did here, they are on the site. So that's great. She just shipped a product, whether it was her own thing that she did or with this company. That's the part that's a little unclear. And then on top of that, if you scroll down a tiny bit, Ludovic, where it says how many designers or how many people are on the team, it's actually unclear what her role was. UX designer on a team of 5. Okay, what did you actually do then? It made me question everything below this as far as, okay, you're on a team of 5. If we were to hire you, what could you do? It's unclear for us because it's not, she doesn't call out what she did versus other people on the team did. And to me, that is a massive red. Just seeing that alone, I would write someone off because I don't know what they've done. And I can guarantee I can find someone else who's called that out and done a better job of getting out that information. So I can make a call about, hey, this person can do 90% of the things we need them to do. I'm going to hire this person versus the one that's unclear about what they can actually provide.
Yeah, and to go back to what you were saying about earlier about this first sentence up here is it's the same issue on the homepage. Well, we don't want to know that it's an online e-commerce store that creates blah blah. Whatever it does, it's important to know. But somewhere else here, the main thing is what did you accomplish? That's the number one goal, right? Smiles to door. We don't care too much. That could be so super small. But then what's the achievement behind this case study? I don't know, right? And so I have to go and fish around to be okay, what was the problem? What was the solution? What did she actually accomplish? And all that time for me to try to figure these things out, while it could be laid out very simply here, is way too much work. And I manager be okay, I have too much work to do. I'm out.
So. It's hard. It's hard to get the stuff you're after here. Yeah. And you guys both touched on things that I just love to hear so much. Colton, the point that you made about, I assumed that this was a fake bootcamp project just because of the overall structure, the way it looks. And I feel like I've seen this case study hundreds of times before, and I made assumptions based on that. I talked to so many designers who are struggling with the same thing. They're either in their boot camp or right out of the boot camp, and they don't have real stuff yet. And that puts them at a major disadvantage. To those designers out there who do have a real project, Colton, based on what you saw, this seems like a real thing. Morgan worked on this and shipped something. That is a huge differentiator right now in this market, with all the bootcamp grads out there and lots of designers, lots of bootcamp grads, not many jobs. Hiring managers want people who've done real stuff. And Colton, I think you're exactly right. Morgan should be hitting us over the head with the fact that this was a real project. Either she was an FTE or it was a client relationship. If that's the first thing you know as a hiring manager, it's like, all right, cool. This is real experience. All right, now I'm more intrigued. That's a huge deal. And then Ludovic, what you're saying is totally right on as well. If instead of the headline, if instead of it being smiles to your door, if it's improving cart conversion by 17%, that's a huge deal. And we still don't know. This is not a very scannable case study, which is something else we should talk about. But I still don't know what the impact was. There's a bunch of vague terminology. It's a whole other topic, but I never found that.
Yeah,
which could be because I didn't read everything, which is a whole other thing. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, so the last little things to double click on with what you just talked about were the fact that this is walls of text and you don't want to read through it. And I actually started just reading the bolded stuff and I couldn't really follow. I could follow on kind of, but not really. And so like leading with what you actually solve, what's the problem like that you have, which is fine what you have there, but like really getting to the point, like making it so it's easy for someone to go through this, quickly understand the problem, quickly understand the impact of your solution, like making it clear what you actually provided, and then telling a story and saying why you did something. You don't have to go into long detail about what you did. Like you can say, we did this thing. Okay, cool. The product, the designers who are reviewing this, the hiring manager knows what that thing is. Like, why did you do it matters more because it's explaining your critical thinking. And that's what they're hiring you. So like, how can you tell that story of what you did quickly, but why you did it and how that led you to the next thing? And so like, that would lower the amount of text and make this way more scannable as you go down. So I think that's the other big recommendation I'd make is to rewrite this in a way that like, how would you tell your friend about this? And how would you explain to them your decision making behind it? And then like make each section like a couple of sentences long total, and like leave the rest of it, leave a little bit of mystery for when you actually land the interview. So that way you have something to talk about with your portfolio case studies that you walk through during your presentation.
Yeah, and then two more things before we start rating it. So a lot of bold text everywhere. And it's like, well, it's not really relevant in many places like requirements, redesign, integrated. What can I do with that, right? Versus highlighting an actual key sentence that tells me, okay, if I were to just read this sentence, I'm good. I can understand at a glance what's happening here. So too much bolding is just like super overwhelming. And then the second thing is, overview, problem, solution, evaluation, competitive analysis. All these headlines are very, very static and hiring managers see them all the time. And there is no storytelling in the headline itself. So instead of these very static ones, like how can we tell a story in just a few words that doesn't feel so generic? Because everyone does that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Jeff, what would you give this for a rating?
I think this needs an overhaul. And this is another one where there are some, not that it's easy to work on case studies, it's a really difficult thing to do this well. Not that it's easy, but I think this is, again, we've talked about this with the prior two categories. There's some like small tactical things to move this quickly up the ladder. Like some fundamental stuff here is really good. This is a real thing. That's awesome. If that's made more obvious, if the usability problems are fixed, Ludovic, the point you just made about how headlines are written is so good. I just wrote an essay on this thing that I'm going to ship out. I'm not trying to plug stuff, but I wrote a newsletter about this week, about rewriting headlines so they're not process oriented. And if you just spend 8 seconds to quote, read this case study, you just stop at the headlines. If I know what the story is of this project from that is freaking awesome. Everybody should be doing that. That's great advice. So anyway, yeah, I would overhaul this. I think the stuff is there. And with some of these tweaks that we've talked through, like, I think this could convert into leads and interviews for Morgan. Morgan is not selling their strengths right now. And anyway, I would overhaul this one.
I want to be nice. I'll give a meh. I'll give a meh. I think that's everything you said, plus some. I mean, I think everything we talked about so far really summarizes why you between a needs and overall and a may for me. It's just, there's too much that's a red flag, right? It's like you need to remove the stuff that's easy first, and then the more fundamental stuff second. But if it's not usable, if navigation is broken, these are things that are just like, okay, I cannot move forward with this. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I'll go with the needs an overhaul, which means that we have a cheers because we hit roughly 3 minutes in a row or below. So cheers to you both. But yeah, you know, I think if you do all the things we talked about, like, I don't think it would take long to get this to a solid or a kick-ass, because you have the content. You need to be clearer about what you're telling people and the storyline you're telling. And speaking of which, if you like a plug for Jeff, if you're not familiar, he has a storytelling course. It's all about helping designers improve their storytelling skills. Like, I would highly recommend looking into it, going through his framework for recreating this in a way that actually tells the story that you want to be telling and would land you a job.